Hello, YouTube. So I'm going to make a video response here to one of the YouTubers here. Let me get his name. Okay. His name is UnseenPerfidy. And the name of the video is Atheist Libertarian Quasi-Anarchist Says Government Needs to Take Over Private Company. And it's Rithbrindil or Rob. And he's talking about the Amazing Atheist. And somehow he thinks he's owning the Amazing Atheist. With this, and you know, it's sort of like the argument that they're having between each other. Even though the Amazing Atheist is more sympathetic towards anarchist and libertarian views, he's not there yet. He's more like a vulgar libertarian. But I'm not sure if you know what that means or even what that constitutes, because, Rob, let's face it, you don't know fuck all about anarchism or libertarianism, because almost all your arguments are straw mans. Or if you do know something, you're being completely disingenuous and dishonest about whatever the fuck you think you know. So anyway, in this video, Rob makes a bunch of arguments, and a lot of those arguments, unfortunately, for him, kind of don't jive if you're looking at, you know, in some sort of logical consistency in arguments. So the first thing that Rob says was that, or the first problem Rob has, that you have, Rob, UnseenPerfidy, is that you stay within the confines of the existing system. I'm not sure if you know what I mean. You wrap yourself up in the bubble of what you perceive to be reality, which is textbook knowledge that you acquired probably through university textbooks or college textbooks or something like that. You took a course of how reality operates. You know what I'm saying? So you don't know reality based on reality in practice, or how government operates in practice. You have this view of how government operates in theory, based on your knowledge of how government operates. Which means that, or which leads to you being wrong on almost everything you say. Your predictions are almost always wrong, whereas people like me, our predictions are almost always spot on. Hey, by the way, NSA spying on all of us. You said it wasn't happening, I said it was. Hey, look. Hey, by the way, chemtrails. True. Hey, by the way, I could keep on going. But anyways, I'm not going to keep going on all this stuff, because I was pretty much right on everything that you used to counter-argue me in my videos, and now it's all out there. You used to be pro-Saddam Hussein too, and I used to be anti-Saddam Hussein. I used to say they didn't have WMDs. You used to say they had WMDs, and then came out, hey, they didn't have WMDs. You switched your position, but I was right from the get-go. How can that be? How can I be consistently right and you consistently wrong, and you have to wait for the authorities to admit that they were wrong before you switch your position? How can that be? How can that be, Rob? Gee, I wonder. But anyway, so it's because you stay within the confines of the existing system and you don't actually think. You simply regurgitate what you've been taught or what you've learned. So there's no creativity in what you do. And the system that you profess is a system that's falling apart at the seams right now. It's an empire in decline. So it's a reality that will cease to exist, could cease to exist tomorrow. We don't know. Most people say by 2020, but that it'll be really, really in trouble. Some people are even saying 2016 is we're gonna have big problems in 2016. We'll see. But either way, the empire and its influence across the globe is crumbling. The empire being the United States of America, by the way. Anyways, let's get on to the arguments that you're saying now. Now that I've kind of shown you, or tried to show you, the problem. And your problem is that you know government, how it works in theory, and not how it works in reality or in practice. Because your idea of reality is textbook knowledge of an entity, and not how the entity actually operates. Whereas people like me know how the entity operates, know how it thinks, know how it behaves, so we can make quite accurate predictions on whether it's lying or not. Actually, 100% accurate predictions, almost. So you say that YouTube has no monopoly. That's your first argument. YouTube has no monopoly. That's fine. Okay, all right. Technically speaking, YouTube has no monopoly because YouTube operates on the internet, right? And I guess you figure the internet is free and open. Other video websites can come and compete with YouTube. It's all honky-dory. Bullshit. Bullshit on several fronts. First of all, the internet is now more and more being, or at least pushed for it to be regulated. It's got a kill switch and things like that, but that's not even where I'm going to go. Where I'm going to go is something different. You see, YouTube works on a licensing system. Obviously, you guys are talking about flagging. They should have clued in, but I guess, anyways, you only know textbook stuff. So, since YouTube operates on a licensing scheme, I'm sure many of you, it has happened to you, whereas you try to look at a video and it says the content's not available due to a licensing issue in your country. Do you wonder why that is? Well, that's because the person in question, in this case, the entity in question being Google or YouTube, has to pay to have content produced in certain countries be available in other countries, even if it's user-created content, your own created content. So videos that I can make might not be available based on the topic that I'm talking about, based on what I write that my video is about, all across the world. They may block it. If I have a video about the Holocaust, and I don't know, I would never do that. But say I was an asshole and I deny the Holocaust ever existed or ever happened, it could be that would be blocked in certain countries, mostly Germany, and others as well. So you see, there's licenses that have to do. What are licenses? Well, licenses is what you need when you have regulations in place by the state, which protects things that don't exist, such as intellectual property and copyrights based on intellectual property, patents and things of the sorts. Which is to say that in this particular case, you need a license, or Google needs a license, in order to display content across state lines. That license costs a lot. State lines, sorry, country lines. And that license costs a lot. And also certain the content that's being displayed on YouTube, and certain advertisers that are advertising on YouTube have put pressure on YouTube to mold and shape its website into a way that benefits them, and YouTube has done so. So user content is kind of in the background, and what's pushed up is status quo bullshit, CNN, etc. Just the stuff that you would see on TV is usually what's in your face if you don't log in with your account. On YouTube, and even if you log in with your account, you get a bunch of suggested videos. Like I got you as a suggestion for some fucking odd reason. It told me that I should watch your videos. Literally, YouTube suggested that I watch your videos, and that's why I'm here. See how that works? So the point here is that because of the intellectual property and copyright laws in place and the regulations in place with that, YouTube needs to seek, or anyone who wishes to compete with YouTube needs to seek these exorbitant licenses, because the fees are so high, from corporate conglomerate entities who are nothing more than oligopolic entities due to the fact that intellectual property rights and copyrights exist, because they're able to actually stop any sort of innovation based on pre-existing ideas and pushing ideas forward, because they can say that breaks their particular patent, which is kind of idiotic in certain ways, because intellectual property makes this sort of claim that you can own an idea, but the problem is once you express that idea, you no longer own it. And when you release a product, it's an expression of your idea. So if someone takes that product, looks at it, guess what happens? Eyes, look, imprinted in your brain, it now resides in your property. So if someone were to limit your ability to use your property in order to, in your labor, and just use your ability to create, your creativity, your labor, and whatever's in here, which is your property, in order to make ends meet, in order to survive, someone comes in and says you're not allowed to do that, which is what intellectual property rights are, and which is what copyrights are, then that, in fact, is an unjust form of regulation. And those forms of regulation create patent trolls, they create your Apples of the world and your Samsungs of the world and all that kind of crap, and they inhibit the ability to have competition, which would bring the prices down and create a more egalitarian society as a whole, without having to have forced egalitarianism. Yeah, but, So what I'm saying here is that YouTube, due to the fact that it exists within the confines of an existing bubble, which you live in, is invariably has a monopoly. Adam Kokesh is an anarchist because he works for, is not an anarchist according to you because he works for an oppressive state propaganda network, RT. Now, RT is a non-profit organization, and yes, it does get grants from the oppressive state of Russia, but then again, all states are oppressive. It's just a matter of perspective and nationalism and a bunch of other bullshit. And I already know that you to be a nationalist. So, you as a nationalist American would of course see, another nation that disagrees with you as being oppressive, or if it disagrees against certain things like homosexuality as being oppressive, even though you didn't seem to think the United States of America was that oppressive just a few years ago, or even right now, with regards to what it does to people worldwide. So I guess your sort of opinion on what constitutes oppression or not is hypocritical at best, and you're not logically consistent, so you should just shut the fuck up. You're saying that a so-called anarchist was arrested for breaking the law, and saying, I guess you said that as part of your argument as to why Adam Kokesh was not an anarchist. I find that a little odd. Do you know what an anarchist is? And do you know the concept of law, being unjust? If a law is unjust, do you follow it? Do you follow unjust laws? Well, you do, because you're a textbook douchebag. But for everyone else who thinks for themselves, no. Hence why people protest, hence why some of us know the true meaning of the word oppression. Then you go on to say, Google is free to do as they please with their service. They're a private company. True. That is true. But then again, they operate within a venerable oligopoly in their particular marketplace, which is held up by state regulatory institutions and concepts such as intellectual property, patents, copyrights, etc. And then, of course, I go on to ask you how many iTunes are out there, because we all know the record industries are very, very, very hostile to the idea of having various competitors online. They like to be able to control their content. They like to have to, be able to sell you a whole album. They make way more money off of that instead of selling you one song at a time, and a bunch of other stuff. So, the push to not have that many iTunes out there is from the record studios, which are entrenched and in place due to, again, copyrights and all that bullshit. YouTube is free to do as they please with their service. True, they're a private company. True, but they exist within a monopolistic oligopoly or duopoly or game theory in general type system, a system that operates on game theory. Then you go on to read the Constitution, the First Amendment. Congress shall not infringe on blah 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 blah, free exercise of religion and freedom of speech, freedom of the press, all that stuff. And that's all fine and dandy. But coming from the guy who makes fun of Ron Paul, a strict constitutionalist, I don't think you can speak as to what is constitutional and unconstitutional. As a person who's not consistent when it comes to constitutional issues, I'm not sure what you think about the NSA spying now, but I certainly remember you calling me a nut job for suggesting that the government was spying on everyone and collecting all of our data. Because I was right, because again, I think. You don't. You simply regurgitate what you've learned. You obey. You're a good little dog. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, because you trample on the Constitution whenever it suits your own agenda, whenever it suits your opinions. It's like the world is Rob's world, and you'll use whatever argument suits your own agenda. There's no logical consistency, there's no honesty, there's no intellectual integrity in any of your arguments. You just spout a libertarian argument here, an anarchist argument here, and a liberal argument here, and a state communist argument here, and then think you've just defeated someone without understanding that your arguments have to follow a certain rationale. Or else, why would I accept communist ideas? Why would I accept liberal ideas? Why would I oppose communist ideas? You know what I'm saying? If you don't follow a certain consistency and you say that you're wrong because you're communist on this issue, and you're right because you're communist on this issue, then the problem that occurs there is that what you're effectively saying is that communism is sometimes right and sometimes wrong, even though the argument is the same and applies the same in a logical, consistent way. Because that's how ideologies are built. They're built on philosophy and logical consistency, not built on the cult of Rithbrindle and his views and opinions. And then you go on to say think about how government works, and then go on to talk about your bullshit about, this is how the government works according to my textbook, which is all nice, fine, and dandy, sure, but that's not how government works in practice. People like me, Ojama Flipper, who you love to make fun of, and others, like to talk about how government works in practice as well as in theory, because we like to point to you the theory, and then point to what they're actually doing, and go, When a government has certain laws that it enforces upon us, but then doesn't follow those laws themselves, does it have the moral authority to govern? Gee, I wonder. Does it have the logical consistency to be taken seriously? I don't know. Look at the amount of people who vote now in the United States of America, or actually, more important than that, look at the amount of people who don't vote. Also, look at the approval ratings of your Congress and the approval rating of your president. Do you think that not being logically consistent and not being truthful and forthcoming, do you think that's cost them some support amongst the American people? Gee, I wonder. But anyways, all I want to say, Rob, all in all, I'm sure you're a swell guy, and I'm sure we'd probably get along if we went out for a drink or something. But as a political or philosophical commentator, you just suck. You should quit. I mean, you're popular and stuff, but you're wrong on everything. You're just... yeah. Anyways, I can't really say anything more than that. You just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That's all. Peace.